Hi everybody, welcome back to Recovering with Alexi. I'm Alexi and I use any pronouns. Today is Christmas Eve. So, personally, I kind of celebrate Christmas. As I've mentioned, I'm not a Christian, but both of my partner's families are, so we celebrate with them. I also celebrate Yule, which was this past Sunday. And we usually do our house presents between Yule and Christmas. Last year we did it on Yule. This year we did it the Monday, which was 2 days ago. So I hope that if you can, you're having as good of a holiday season as you can. I know Hanukkah just ended a couple of days ago, so I hope any Jewish viewers had a good Hanukkah. And I know that this can be a really hard time of year, especially for those of us in recovery. So I just want to remind you to give yourself grace, give yourself time, let yourself do things slowly if you need to. And remember that if a situation is overwhelming for you, if you need to get out of there, you can. You're allowed. Especially, I'm assuming we're all adults here. You're allowed to leave. You can leave. No one can hold you there. Okay? It might be looked down upon. It might be frowned upon. But it's better to have a conversation with people later about how your behavior was impolite than to put yourself into a situation that is harmful to you and is harmful to your recovery. So I just want everybody to know that it's okay to walk away. It's okay to take time for yourself. It's okay to move at your own pace and make sure that your needs are getting met. And that means your physical needs, your emotional needs, all of your needs, your spiritual needs. You know, if going to that holiday party is not good for you, but spending some time in a church is good for you, by all means, take your time, do what you need to do, okay? So I just wanted to start off with that because that's really important. And let's move into my check-in for today. So, 2 positives for today. My first positive is that I got a job after 2.5 months unemployed. I quit my last job, so I guess I wasn't technically unemployed, but I've been not having a job. When I went into my PHP, my partial hospitalization program back in October, because my job was causing me so much stress that I was suicidal. And that's what landed me in the hospital, and that's what landed me in PHP. So I said I couldn't do that anymore, and I quit. So I have found a new job that is going to be better for me. It's a lot less driving. It's more money. And it's pretty routine. I'm just counting stuff all day long, which is so easy for me. I do it on accident because my brain has a thing about counting. So I will just count things just all the time. That's why my meditation that I use is counting my breath, which is a really good meditation. And yeah, so that's going to be great for me. I'm going to be able to pay my bills again and not have to rely on my partners, which has been difficult emotionally. I don't like relying on other people. I'm a very independent person, but I have slowly been having to accept that sometimes, you know, we're social creatures. We are all reliant on other people at some times in our lives, and we don't expect that that's going to be the case while we're adults. We expect that we're going to be able to take care of ourselves when we're adults, but that's not always the case. Sometimes you got to ask for help, and it's okay to ask for help. And a lot of the time, especially if you're asking the right people, if you have the right people in your life, you're going to receive help. So can't get what you don't ask for, right? And my second positive is that I have started a morning routine, which is something that I've been wanting to do for a while, but didn't really have like a good idea how to do it. But then the other night I was journaling and I just kind of came up with what do I want that to look like? What do I want to see in my morning to help me get on with my day? And I came up with a couple things. My meditation, which I was already doing, writing down my dreams, which is just kind of a thing I want to do. It's not necessarily, some big life-altering, changing thing, but I want to write down my dreams. I have been having a lot of really interesting dreams lately, to the point where sometimes it's hard to wake up because my dream is so interesting. So I want to write that stuff down, and maybe it'll give me ideas for stories I want to write. Maybe it'll give me ideas for art I want to do and stuff like that. So I think that's really cool. So meditating, writing down my dreams, prayer. I want to communicate with my gods more often. That's a thing I want to do for me. And so I've been doing that every morning, and incorporating reading like a small passage of text, like not a religious text, but like a recovery kind of text. I have 2 books coming in the mail that were recommended to me, not personally recommended to me, but have been recommended by the wonderful Peter Mon, who we love on this channel. And they are by Beattie. I'm going to leave some links to the thrift books, the thrift book store, which is where I got my copies. I'm going to leave some links down in the bottom. They are, actually, let me pull it up and tell you exactly what they are called, so that way you will know. So they're both by Beattie. One is called The Language of Letting Go, Daily Meditations for Codependence. And the other one is called Journey to the Heart, Daily Meditations on the Path to Freeing Your Soul. And I have seen some of the text of The Language of Letting Go already, and it's very recovery-oriented language. So that seems like it is going to be very helpful for me. So I'm going to commit to reading. The way it's styled is every day of the year there's a different little passage, and it's just different topics about like self-help, recovery, taking care of yourself emotionally, letting yourself feel things, stuff like that. That's all very important and good. So that way I have something I can look at every day and be like, okay, here's something for me to focus on, maybe in my prayer, maybe in my meditation, to see, is how does this apply to my life? How does this, come into play? And then that's also something for me to journal on later, because I also have an afternoon routine, which is kind of an extension of the morning routine, but since I have this new job, I'm kind of going to flex it so I can do these things right after I'm done with my morning if I have the time, or I can do them in the afternoon when I get home from work, or anytime before bedtime. So that's that would be journaling for at least 15 minutes, reading for at least 15 minutes, and doing some form of writing for at least 15 minutes. So that can be I have 2 kind of projects that I'm working on. One is a fiction project that is just some writing that I like to do about a character that I made up. And then the other is sort of a blogging project, which is where I just write something nonfiction to go on one of my websites, which I have a bunch because I am a super nerd. And then let's see, one positive from today. No, I did my 2 positives. Excuse me. I'm just not remembering things today. Second thing is any urges or cravings. Last week, yes, but not this week. So last week I've noticed specifically on Sundays, I tend to have a hard time on Sundays. So those are days when I really tend to wind up with the cravings and everything. But the past couple of days especially, we've had some friends over each day, and we've had a lot of social time, and specifically with people who don't do any sort of drugs. Both of the people that we had over are, I don't think they call themselves straight edge, but they specifically don't do They don't drink, they don't do any sort of drugs. They're completely sober people. So hanging out with them is good because it kind of, I have this hyper empathy, this tendency towards wanting to do what other people are doing. So if I have people around me who are specifically sober people, it's a lot easier for me to either overcome cravings or just not experience them at all, because what's being modeled for me is sobriety, you know? And that's really helpful for me. So definitely, if you can get yourself some sober friends, definitely a good time. Definitely a good time. So that's been really helpful for me the last couple of days. And what else? I think that's about it for the check-in. So let's get into one thing that I wanted to talk about today, which is this interesting thing that I found over the past week called the 8 awarenesses. Now, this is basically a framework that this person invented because she didn't really jive with the 12-step program framework. Now, personally, I have never done a 12-step program. That just wasn't the model of recovery that went into the program that I did complete. So I don't know if the 12-step program would work for me or not because I haven't experienced it. It is something that I would look into and be interested in. But I kind of have, I think I have a similar issue with some of the language that they use. So it says here, for nearly a century, Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12 Steps have been the dominant framework for changing one's relationship with alcohol. And that does include other drugs as well. We know there are, similar to AA, there are other programs that are 12-step programs for other drugs as well. While the program has transformed countless lives, it isn't a fit for everyone. Many don't identify as alcoholic, don't resonate with the language of powerlessness, or aren't inclined to hand their fate over to a higher power. That was one of the things that always got me, was like, what about atheists, you know? I'm not personally an atheist, but I am of, I would say, maybe a minority religion, I guess, is the term. So I do feel for my other minority spirituality and religion having peoples, or my lack of religion having peoples. You know, I feel like, I really do feel like anyone who isn't Christian kind of has a fellowship with me. Does that make any sense? And again, not to say I don't have anything against most Christians. It's just some of y'all use your religion in ways that don't, in my view, jive with the religion itself. They kind of twist it to sort of suit their own ends, and I'm not cool with that part. But I do think that the requirement of a higher power, I know when they talk about it, they say it doesn't have to be a god. It can be like your own higher self, your own wise mind, things like that. But I still think the term does suggest a god, suggest the necessity of a god. And I understand why people wouldn't necessarily jive with that language or be okay with that language. And again, don't resonate with the language of powerlessness. I think that's something that I'm having to come to terms with as well, personally, because I think for a lot of us, maybe not all, but for a lot of us, from what I've seen, addiction is very much a disorder of control. We want to be able to control things. We feel like we're not in control, and we feel like the one thing we can control is using. I feel like this is sort of part of my own journey, is having to come to terms with, I don't want to feel powerless, because for so much of my life I was powerless, and that's why I feel like that's why I'm an addict, is because I need something to control, because for so much of my life, I felt like I had no control over what was happening to me. So I feel like I understand where Cecily here is coming from. I really do. Even though I've never been through a 12-step program and I'm not sure how I would actually get along with that in practice, I do feel like these particular concerns, obviously I don't identify as an alcoholic because that's not my substance of choice, but I don't think that's what she means. I think she means for people that where alcohol is their substance of choice, they don't necessarily identify themselves as alcoholics. Maybe they resonate more with the term addict. Maybe they resonate more with the term substance use disorder, or what have you. Or maybe they just think I have a problem and that's the extent of what they know or what they feel, you know. Cecily is one of them. When she stopped drinking in 2017, she found that existing frameworks didn't match her experience. What she felt wasn't surrender, but choice. I identify with that highly. She wanted an approach that emphasized self-awareness, autonomy, and healing. I think that's really important, especially for those of us, and there are so many of us, those of us who have trauma in our backgrounds. We need to be able to heal because we need... How do I put this? Mr. Peterman was talking about this in one of his videos that I watched the other day. Was I'll see if I can find it and put it in the link. Was that you need to take care of your emotional health in order. What did he say? He said it's a thinking disorder, not a drinking disorder, I think was what he said. Or he might have said disease, I'm not sure. But healing, I think that's paramount. We need to be able to heal in order to, again, I feel like this term comes back, in order to have control, you know? We need to be able to understand our emotions and give ourselves what we need in order to avoid giving ourselves something we don't need, which is the substance. So standing at her kitchen counter one morning in 2018, she opened a Word document, copied the 12 steps, and began rewriting them to reflect her journey. Over time, through research, community conversations, and lived experience, she shaped them into something new, the 8 awarenesses. Unlike the 12 steps, the 8 awarenesses are not about labels or powerlessness. They are about a conscious choice, self-trust, and presence. They provide a framework for anyone seeking to shift their relationship with alcohol or any dimming habit, I like that phrase, dimming habit, without the need for diagnosis, rehab, or rigid identity. Now, I think that my feelings about this are very personal to me, because I am the type of person who very much wants to pathologize my experience. I very much think that having that diagnosis, having that formal treatment is something that works for me personally. But I need to understand that that is just me personally, and that is not what's going to work for everybody. And that's not necessarily even, I don't know if that's necessarily a healthy way for me to approach it. It's just what tends to work for me. So I do understand that some people need a lack of diagnosis, rehab, or rigid identity, but some people don't, you know? If what you need is that diagnosis, is to go to rehab, is to have the rigid identity of I am an addict, if that's what helps you and keeps you in recovery, absolutely use it. If that doesn't work for you, maybe these 8 steps, these 8 awarenesses are going to be something for you. So we have these. Clarity. My life is better clear. I think that one's pretty obvious. Clear means without the substance. Choice. I choose what I consume. Now, I think that's where a lot of us struggle, is we feel like we don't have that choice, right? We feel like we need the substance. We have to have the substance. But if you've spent any time in recovery, even a day, you hopefully have some evidence there that you can choose not to use. That is a choice you can make. It's a very hard choice sometimes. But it is a choice you can make. I have faith in you. And every day we can choose not to, you know? Intuition. My intuition defines my priorities, and I pursue a life that reflects them. So intuition can be a hard one, especially for those of us who've been through trauma, because we don't necessarily trust ourselves because we've been trained in a way not to trust ourselves. We've sort of been trained that our thoughts, our feelings, our intuition, our understanding of the world is wrong, and we have to look to others. This is a very big problem that I personally have. It manifests in me mostly as choice paralysis. When I have a choice between things, even if it's completely insignificant, like, do I want to wear this shirt or that shirt today? Sometimes I genuinely cannot decide. I want to do both, but you can't really wear 2 t-shirts at once. It doesn't really make sense to do that. So I will ask someone else. I'll ask one of my partners, or I'll send a picture to a friend and say, which one of these should I wear today? I think that's probably a very silly example, but it is a real life example of the ways in which I don't trust my own judgment, you know? And I think intuition is difficult for some of us to really listen to, you know? What is intuition and what is just that voice of trauma, you know? So I think intuition defines my priorities, and I pursue a life that reflects them. I definitely get pursuing a life that reflects your priorities. I think if we're having trouble with this one, which I personally do, I think a good idea is maybe to journal about what your priorities are and see, you know, what's most important to you in life, and then see where does your inner voice line up with that, you know? And maybe when you're going through your day and your inner voice lines up with your priorities, maybe take a second to, like, notice that and feel grateful for that. Healing. I seek to understand my trauma, but do not make it my identity. This one I think is both important and also very difficult. I don't know how not to identify as a traumatized person. I would have a hard time with this. I know I want to heal. I know that's important. I know that will make my life easier. I don't know how. And I don't know. It's such an important piece of my puzzle that I don't know how not to give it that weight. But I do always seek to understand it. I do always seek to learn more about myself and more about where I'm coming from. And I think that's why I journal so much. I really, really advocate journaling. I think journaling is a wonderful tool. And all you need is a notebook and a pen. Or if you have a computer or a phone, get yourself in your notes app. You know what I mean? Just sit there and talk to yourself via text. Freedom. Forgiveness and letting go are on the path to liberation. This one's also very hard. And I think a lot of fellow traumatized people, maybe even Cecily herself, can understand why a lot of us have a difficult time with this, because forgiveness feels like making excuses sometimes. Forgiveness feels like letting people off the hook. I understand that that's not what forgiveness means in an intellectual sense, but when I try to process things, when I try to think about forgiving the people who hurt me, it's hard. I really do feel like I am excusing them in some way when I try to do this. So that's been very hard for me. I still have not forgiven. I still have not forgiven all of those people. I might do another video on forgiveness at some point, because we did go over that in one of my programs, and I think it would be good to talk about. But I think it's very interesting here that she lists freedom and then talks about forgiveness and letting go. I think that makes sense to me. Because when you have that resentment, that's sort of a link that binds you to that person. I am still being influenced and held down by my attachment to these people, even if it's a negative attachment. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why forgiveness and letting go are so important. I just don't think that I'm at a place yet where I can do that. And one day I hope to be. But I'm not there yet. But I think these are maybe more aspirational than they might first seem. I don't think this is something that you necessarily have to do all at once. In fact, we're going to talk about that when we get done with them. So let me get through the rest of these. Respect. I don't judge or impose my limitations on others. That's important. That's a really good one. And I think she doesn't mention it here, but I think respect also, you have to respect yourself. You have to respect your limitations. You shouldn't judge your own limitations, you know? I had limitations this morning doing my morning routine. I had to take it very slowly. I had to do some things out of order. But in giving myself that time, in giving myself that allowance, that accommodation, I was able to get everything done. And that's what's most important. Time. Time is our most precious currency. I think that makes sense. I think when we're in recovery, a lot of the time we spent using feels wasted. Feels like we were... I think for me specifically, it genuinely feels like I was using in order to pass the time. In order to make the time go by more pleasantly. In order to... fill that time with something that wasn't productive, that felt good, but didn't actually align with my goals. So yeah, time is very important. I agree with that one. Service. I seek ways to support others, especially in times of abundance. I think that's also very important. I think service ties very much into community. You will inevitably end up with a community if you are seeking to support others. I think you also have an easier time of supporting others within a community, finding people to support. So it kind of feeds into each other, support and community. So I like that one as well. I think community is very important. I read somewhere the other day where someone said, the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, it is community. And that hit me really hard. I liked that a lot. How to work with the awarenesses. There is no single way to practice the 8 awarenesses. They are meant to be used as a compass, not a checklist. Whether you're shifting your relationship with alcohol or any other behavior that dims your light, these principles invite exploration and inner work. Start with clarity. The first awareness, my life is better clear, is foundational. It is the seed of readiness for change and the reminder of why clarity matters. Then choose one to live with. Spend a week or more reflecting on one awareness that feels especially relevant. For instance, time might prompt you to ask, am I spending time in ways that reflect my priorities? What drains me? What nourishes me? Make space for reflection. This is inner work. Create time, ideally in solitude or nature, to think, walk, or journal. Even 10 quiet minutes can help insights surface. And again, we come back to journaling, which is so important, in my opinion. Be kind to yourself. Change rarely follows a straight path. Frustration, doubt, or shame are natural parts of the process. Give yourself grace, return to clarity, and keep going. This kind of reminds me of what we say in meditation, which is, you're focusing on your breath and the thoughts will come in and you have to just acknowledge them, let them go, and return to your breath. So you give yourself grace, you return to clarity, and then you keep going. So I think that's really good. Seek connection. While this work is deeply personal, community helps. Whether through supportive friends, online spaces, or local gatherings, connection reminds us that we're not alone in choosing a clearer life. And I think that comes back to community, which is so, so important. Stay curious. There is no right or wrong way to engage with the 8 awarenesses. Let them meet you where you are and allow your relationship with them and yourself to evolve. I think that's a really important point too. Stay curious. You need to remain curious about yourself, because in recovery and just through life itself, we are always changing. We are always adapting to new circumstances. We are reviewing what kind of person we want to be and acting more in alignment with that, right? And maybe what kind of person we want to be changes. Maybe we find something new that we decide is very important to us. I know people who later in life or through recovery or through some other circumstance in their life get really, really religious. And that becomes a new guiding light for them. That becomes a new priority for them in their life. And they turn towards that. And that's wonderful. If it helps you, absolutely. I know some people who will get really into art. Some people who change their priorities when they have children. You're always going to be growing and changing through life. Maybe you get a new job and that job really awakens something in you that is a priority for you, that is really important for you. You're gonna change, and I think stay curious about yourself is very, very good. And stay curious about the world around you. Maybe that's where it's gonna come from that you change, is you're gonna just get really into something about the world that you never thought of before. If you allow yourself to stay curious, you have more of these opportunities to really sorry, that sentence got away from me. You have more opportunities to find what is important to you in life. Find maybe something that's new for you in life. Find something that you're passionate about, So I think that's really good. Now, there are a bunch of articles about each of these. And then the little end piece here. Obviously, I'm going to link this in the description so you can go and check it out. It says, a moment of choice, not stigma. Clear Life and the 8 awarenesses meet people in the, quote, vast middle between casual use and addiction. They offer a way forward for those who want to drink less, stop altogether, or address other escapist patterns without shame, stigma, or surrender. The goal isn't just abstinence. It's to create a life so intentional and connected that there is no need to dim it. And I think that's really... It almost makes me think of when people talk about weight loss and how, diets don't really work because you need to change your lifestyle. Now, caveat with that, that's if your weight gain is caused by lifestyle. Obviously, that's not the case for everybody, but for some people, they can change their body type by a different lifestyle. But you have to change the whole lifestyle. You can't just, eat different things for a month and then you lose the weight and then you're fine forever. Because a lot of the times what happens when people use these fad diets is they'll go on the diet for a couple of months and lose some weight, and then they think they're fine and they go off the diet and they gain the weight back. And I've heard that that's also true with these new medications, the GLP-1s, you know, your Ozempic and Wegovy and all of those. I've heard that's also the case with these, is that you have to continually take them, and then if you go off of them, there's a large chance you're going to gain the weight back. So that's something that I've learned with that, is that it's really a lifestyle change. You need to change the way that you approach, you know, the things that cause weight gain or the things that cause weight loss. You need to change your whole approach if you really want to change your body type, basically. And I think that's true of this as well. You need to change the way you move through the world and the way you respond to your own emotions in order to truly have a successful recovery. That's just my opinion, though. I could be wrong, but that's just what I've seen in people that have been sober for a long time. Is what they really change is their lifestyle. They change who they hang out with. They change where they go. They change what they spend their time doing. And that's really the necessary part of recovery, is to change fundamentally what your life looks like, you know? And that's how a lot of people stay sober, stay abstinent, and it works for a lot of people. So I think the best thing you can do is whatever system helps you change your life in such a way that supports your recovery. That's what's going to be the best for you. And for me, things like this morning routine, things like I have an evening routine, things like filling my time with stuff I actually want to do, like writing, like blogging, like making these videos, helping reach out to the community, making art, you know, journaling, reading, all these things that I really want to do that I never... It was hard to read when I was using because I was too high to understand what I was reading, you know? So when I was using all the time, there was no time for me to read. But now that I'm abstinent, I have all this time to fill with things like reading and journaling and writing and doing art, all these things that I couldn't do when I was high. Now I have the time and the clarity and the ability to do them. So it's really a matter of perspective, you know. Get right with yourself as to what you really want to do with your life, and make the changes you need to make in order to align with those things. And it's not always going to be easy. It's not. Sometimes it's going to be hard as hell. But it is possible. And you just need to give yourself grace, give yourself time, let yourself move at whatever pace you need to move at. And yeah, just accommodate yourself, you know. We talk about disability accommodations for work and for school, but there are ways that you can accommodate yourself in your everyday life too. Like me this morning, giving myself that extra time that I needed, letting myself do my tasks out of order. These are just some accommodations that I needed today, and I was able to get everything done. So, you know, it does work. Alrighty. Well, this has been our longest video yet. I think next time I want to talk about forgiveness, which is maybe something we all might need to hear after a potentially rough holiday season. And I hope if you are celebrating tomorrow that you have a great holiday. I hope if you are celebrating anything within the next couple weeks, or if you are celebrating anything within the past week, you are having a great time, and if you're not, I hope you are being kind to yourself, taking care of yourself, giving yourself space and time, and allowing yourself to recover from any sort of family obligations or friend obligations that you have, or work obligations. Give yourself time to recover from that, because that's also, it's a different form of recovery, right? But it's a necessary one. So with that, I will leave you, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.